Imagine a conscious contact with God so strong that no matter what you are doing or not doing, that no matter what your kids are up to or not up to, and that whether you've got the person of your dreams or they're just not cooperating, that you are happy, content, and at peace. A space where everyone else's thoughts, attitudes, and actions are beautiful and exactly as they are supposed to be. Well, this is the space where I like to play. My name is Misha Z, and this is today's Bitch Slap. Join me as I shed light on the thoughts, actions, and attitudes that are causing you pain, and we train our minds to go to the capital S inner self, the joy that is waiting for us, the God within.
Curtis Ghee, welcome to the podcast, and excuse me for saying this, but the Bitch Slap, the Accelerated Path to Peace podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I think let's talk about how you've got all this great we've got Curtis preaches and teaches to help everyone he encounters that despite their past, their destiny still awaits them. You talked about your 5 keys to your destiny. I mean, you're out there working with youth. You're preaching, right? You
Yes.
do some preaching. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you're carrying a positive message. Let's talk about that. Like you clearly are taking the pain and tension that you're seeing feet on the street as a police officer, and then working with maybe policemen and their families who are struggling. Like you're carrying that positive. Talk to me about that. Like, let's have some fun.
Yes, this is the part I love. When I came on the job, and I talk about this in the compilation book with Les Brown. When I did come onto the job, prior to that, I was always a great kid, never been in trouble, all that good stuff. But I didn't know my purpose. I tried education. I tried hiding behind education, trying to figure it out. But at some point, my cousin and I, we went into the police academy. We took the test in 1990. Okay. And it was a 3-year freeze. Within that time.
Can I ask you a question real quick? When you
Sure.
say hiding behind education, what do you mean?
Oh, yes. I didn't know what I wanted to do, my purpose. So the first thing people say, oh, go to school, get an education, and get a good job. So I went to a trade school and wasn't good with my hands. I got a certificate and a student loan. That's all I got. Never did any work.
And a job of something you couldn't do.
Right. My wife don't even want me doing anything around the house. But and so that was like a year out of high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I went to Philadelphia Community College, and my best friend mother said, "Well, didn't you just finish that other school, and now you're in another school?" Well, and it was like people will hide behind education. And what I say, and this is my little some guy gave me. This is what I put in the book. It's kind of like wanting. It's like buying shoe polish. It's like buying white shoe polish.
Okay.
But deep down in your heart, you really want black shoes.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. We go to school, and we'll go to school because somebody say, well, this is a good field or that's a good field. And you'll go, but it's like, again, it's like buying the shoe polish before the shoe. And like your purpose, you don't go to school to find your purpose, but you go to school to refine your purpose. Purpose is a Bible verse, Proverbs 20:5, that says, purpose in the heart of a man is like deep waters, but it takes a man of understanding to draw it out. So here it is. Purpose is where? It's in your heart. God put it where you could easily find it. It's not in the school. You're not going to find it in school. You're not going to find it anywhere but inside of yourself. Purpose in the heart of a man is like deep water. So you're deep. It's deep. It's in you. But it takes somebody to understand it. And whatever purpose is not used is wasted. And this is what you see out in the streets. So it's in the heart of a man. It is like deep waters, but it takes somebody. This is why I want to go into the schools and say, son, this is what I see in you. You know, I'll go on the corners and say, son, this is not you. This is what I see in you. And so it takes somebody to draw it out. But what happens is when you're 5 years old, you ask a child, son, what do you want to be? A little lady, what do you want to be? They tell you, they tell you and without hesitation. But then that same child at the age of 13, you ask them, what do you want to be? Well, I don't know. Yeah. And it's like, what happened between that time? This is what happened. Purpose was put in the heart. So what happens is now daddy comes home and tell you you're a piece of this. Mommy say you're just like your father. You're going to be dead or in jail by the time you're 18. And you start hearing all this stuff. So now what was here, it gets anesthetized. It gets pushed down. And now you, instead of going with your heart, you're going with your head. You're going by what was filled in your head, you know.
Yeah.
So now it takes somebody like you and I to come and draw it out of them. It's still in them.
Yeah.
So, but to get to the original part of this,
yeah,
this is what I love about this. And I'll never forget, I'll tell this quick story. Back in the year 2000, I literally just got out of church. It was a Sunday afternoon. My partner and I think we came on the 311 shift. And within the first hour, we get a call. And this is how police radio goes. Beep. That's when it's a priority to, they hit the button. The person with a gun, 22nd district person with a gun, report of a shooting. We have a male shot outside the church at 19th and Susquehanna. So my partner and I were like a block and a half away. We pull up and here we see this young man laying on the steps. And he shot apparently with a gunshot wound to the chest. The medic unit came and worked on him. He was pronounced dead at Temple Hospital. This was probably the changing point. Well, without a doubt, the changing point of my career. At this time, I still didn't know my purpose. I thought being a good cop was somebody out there making a lot of arrests. That's what I thought. Okay. So now this kid dies. He's 20 years old. When he was 10 years old, his mother moved him and his little brother down to the suburbs of DC to get them away from the violence in Philadelphia. When he graduated high school, he decided to come back to Philly to go to Temple. This young man leaves out of the church to get something to eat, him and his buddies. He goes into a store. He's inadvertently shot by the suspect who shot his intended target, but accidentally shot this young man through the bicep and into his heart. And this is how he died. When we went to trial, the young man who did the murder, he was a nutcase. I had arrested him before. He's certified, he's a killer. Okay. And yeah. So now we go to court and he's no remorse. But then I heard his story. His story was when he was 3 years old, his mother took his arm and put it on the stove, burned his arm all the way up, his whole entire arm. When he was 13, he was shot 2 different times by the age of 13. And at the age of 18, he was shot multiple times. And that's why he was out that day avenging that shooting. So now the tables turn. I heard his story. And now there's not too many dry eyes in there. And even us tough cops, we're feeling it. And that day, that evening, I went home and I emailed my pastor and I asked her about starting a prison ministry. A cop starting a prison ministry, really? And we did. And the first sermon I ever preached was in the prison. And it came from that. So my point is, I now learned my purpose. And here it is. I knew I had the power and the authority to handcuff people and arrest them. But now I realize I have the same power and authority to uncuff people's potential or to help them to uncuff their potential. So that's where Uncuffed Potential comes from. I just believe if I had time with that young man, maybe I could have said something that could have changed the trajectory of his life. So that's my mission. I want to divert as many people away from the prison system as possible.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're hiding behind your education. You realize this, and then you and your cousin are like, all right, let's go. I think you were saying you were going to take the test to be. Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry. No. Yeah. We took it in 1990.
Okay.
And there was a 3-year freeze because of budget issues. Within that time, 91, Rodney King was beaten by 4 white officers out in LA. And in 92, they were all acquitted. So now my cousin and I, we're like, this may be a game changer. Like, I don't even want to be associated with police. Now, mind you, I had my Uncle Jimmy, George, and Nelson. They were all police officers at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, but Jimmy had just retired. But and then my uncle Arthur, he was also a police officer. So we had the lineage, the line, was there. Deep. But what we both decided was if this is what they're doing, I said that we need to be agents of change. So we took the test, and I'm sorry, we did take, we went into the police academy in 93.
Okay.
So my thing was, in spite of what they did wrong out there, I can be doing good here.
That's pretty powerful. You're 93, you have this awareness, the Rodney King thing goes down, and somehow your brain goes, I want to be an agent of change in the police force. How old are you? So if I do the math, you're 24. That's a pretty powerful awareness. Or what'd your cousin say? Was he like, I'm in, or no?
Well, he was still in. Yeah, we as a matter of fact, we were in academy together. And when we graduated, we also worked together for the first few years in the same district, in the same streets. Yeah. So, we worked together for some years. It was, and this is the thing, it was good. When we got there, it was awesome. We loved the job. But again, part of it was, and we weren't mistreating anybody, but it was cat and mouse. It was cops and robbers.
Yeah.
Bad guys.
Yeah, which is fun in your 20s, right?
Yeah, right. But what happened, you start seeing the same people, the revolving door. And this is what's funny. I had a partner, a black guy.
Yeah.
He beat everybody. This boy was crazy. He was 6'4", about 245, man. He would tear fire. But people would see the patrol wagon out. They see our number. Some of the guys, they would run. They just run. But it was funny. Some years, early on, I would go into the cell room, and I'm the type of person. If you ask me a question, I'm not going to mistreat you just because you're behind bars. And they may ask me a question, I'll stand there and talk to them. So he said, man, why are you always in there talking to them guys? And in my mind, not knowing that God was preparing me for prison ministry, that's what I love. But I always had a heart for people, and I was rough. If I gotta knuckle up with you, I'll knuckle up with you. I'll tell you this real quick. One time we chased a guy with a gun, and he's running with the gun, and I get him. We had to rough him up in the alley.
Yeah.
And as I'm putting him in the wagon, I told him, I said, well, hopefully you'll be a CFCF Saturday night, because I'll be preaching at the prison. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is so that's amazing.
Yeah.
What year was that? Let me ask you.
Let me see, me and Maurice were together. That had to have been 04, maybe 2000.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, around 2005.
Okay, so if I like your arc here. So you joined the police force 94 with your cousin. It's fun. I mean, it's a great thing to do. I liked adrenaline fun stuff as in my 20s as well. So but I'm just, so you're going along, and then you start to see the repetitive nature of, oh, this is a revolving door. We're really just keeping the revolving door going. And so 2000-ish, you have the epiphany of, all right, I need to start like preaching or carrying a positive message. And and then we end up in 2005, where you still get to be a policeman and rough people. Yeah. And at that point, what happened in 2002, I became the district's community relations officer. So I basically was the liaison between the department and the community. So I would have town watch meetings, meeting with police clergy, all those type of things, and just trying to just be that voice to the police for the community, and vice versa. So that was like a turning point for me as well. From 02 to 06, I did that, and got to know a lot of people in the community, and you get to see all the good people in the community. Tell me about that.
Well, let's see, again in 2002. And the way that came about, I never forget, I was at church one Sunday and my pastor said, there's a position that God has for you, but somebody else is in it. But what God has for you, it is for you. And the long story short, the position that the person held this position, the captain got angry with them and put them out. And then I was just Johnny on the spot. And I was given that position. So I would meet with community people.
Did you have a sense when that happened that you're like, oh, this is what my pastor was talking about, or was?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it was, and leading up to that, I had made several attempts to leave where I was working. I was trying to go to citywide vice, different units where I could make more money and I can be out of uniform, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, grow your career, whatever.
And I had connections, but every time it seemed like it was getting blocked, like something out of the norm would happen. So long story short, I said, God must still have something for me to do here. Yeah. And lo and behold, that was it. And it opened a lot of opportunities. So at that point, I started being asked, can you come and talk to our students? So it started way back then when I started speaking, the shy kid, from North Philly. Now I'm speaking in front of people, and the passion was there. And I'm like, wow, I have something special here.
Yeah.
So and that was before I started preaching, actually. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me about so you get involved as this community liaison, and you had said that, oh, I started to see the good, or a new perspective of, wait, there's some good going on here. Tell me.
Yes. There were, and unfortunately, many of the people were seniors and women. And you could see the lack of, like they say 70% in the Black community, I think they said 70% of children are fatherless and whatnot. And you see it there big time, where at these meetings, if there's men there, they're in their 60s and 70s and really unable to really make a huge impact, such as somebody who's in their 20s and 30s who can be somebody that these younger guys can look up to.
And they can come with energy and all
right.
that, some more sustainable kind of.
And yes. And so then I also met with the police clergy. And what we have in each police station or district is we had 21 districts. Each usually have a police clergy, where the churches that are inside of, like, just say Chestnut Hill is the 14th district. Okay. So all of those churches that are within that entire region or district meet as a clergy, and they would come to be of assistance to the police and any needs that we may have them to help us with the community. But some of them wanted to get, because they actually get a badge, they get a clergy badge and it's jackets and all of the different things, but I would hold them accountable. Like, you're not going to just come here, get a badge and sit and meet monthly and do nothing. So what I would do is say, here's the crime sheet. This is what's going on in this community. Your church is in that community. I need you to rally up some of your members, and we're going to walk this community. I'm going to walk with you. And that's what we would do. We would walk the community.
Wow.
I worked, my hours were, 8 to 4, I think, back then.
Yeah.
But if something was going on, like, I went out with Town Watch in the projects at midnight and walked the streets with them. And it was all women and one or two old men. And that's how I was. My thing was, and this is what I try to share with, in particular, the young Black officers. When you wear that badge, this is a platform. This people in some regards have to listen to you. If you detain them, they have to listen to you. And my thing was, I never like to tear a person down without giving them something to build themselves up. Or what that, and also just speaking to people and just being, I was taught early on in life, at my very first job working 17 years old, when I had a supervisor who stripped down and put on the sweatpants and got down. We were doing housekeeping and we had to clean this one ward. And he says, I'm not going to have you do something that I'm not going to do. So I carry that attitude. And so the same thing, if you want change in your community, If you're willing to step out and put your neck out, I'm gonna do it with you.
Mm.
So that, yes, yeah.
So you're walking the street at midnight after your shift, and you've got a bunch of older women. It sounds like a few old men. And tell me about that experience. Is the community that's out and about at midnight responsive to that, or is it? Tell me about that. Like,
Yeah, it was warm out, so it was a lot of people out, but it was really more or less not to really engage anyone, but just to see what is actually going on in that area at night.
mm.
And of course, when they see somebody walking or group walking, they'll dissipate, they'll separate, or
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, what is this coming at me?
Yeah, right. So my thing, I would tell the guys out there, like, you're not going to waste your time while I'm out here. Like, get off the corner. I'll pass out flyers for like opportunities, jobs, and things like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell them I would go out with groups, and I'll take my son. My son is now 22, but he was 8 years old, maybe. He was a young kid back then, and he was with me all the time. We would go and clean communities on my day off on Saturdays and stuff like that. Like, just to show, this is the thing I always said, I have a vested interest in this community. This is a community I grew up, I went to school here, so I have a vested interest in the community. So, yeah.
I like it. I like your smile. Thank you. Tell
Thank
me, obviously that passion for your community and that willingness to put yourself out there is very fulfilling for you.
It really is. It really is, because when you really, really, really get to know people and see, I always say everybody has a story to tell. We didn't wake up like this. Like, there's a history behind even Blacks in particular, the things that happen. But one thing I do not do is give anybody an excuse. Don't, my old pastor used to say, people walking around and comparing scars. Well, this happened to me in 1984. Well, this happened to me in 92. And it's not getting us anywhere.
Yeah.
So I try to, I ask kids this, what is, they say your future is where? It's ahead of you. And I say, well, I beg to differ. Your future is not ahead of you. Your future is inside of you. Out of you. That's it. It's just like an apple seed. An apple seed does not have to go to the produce junction to buy an apple. It just produces it. And so, same thing. God did not put your future outside of you. He put it inside of you. And it's the future of an apple seed is a tree, an apple tree, and then it produces an apple. And it's the same thing. There is something in you. There's greatness in you, and you just need somebody to help nurture and identify it, and then once you learn it, now you got to take responsibility for your life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me. And I want to, tell me what's your day like today? How often you're speaking at schools, you're preaching at the prisons still? Yeah.
Yeah. When I left my former church, I wasn't preaching at the prison anymore, but ironically, I was going to join a group right when COVID hit and get back into the prisons.
Okay.
There's a university here in Philadelphia, well, right outside of Philly, Eastern University. I donate to them. They have a program for inmates where they actually learn getting college degrees and whatnot. So I donate to make sure they get books and stuff like that. So I am looking to get in somewhere in there where I can maybe go and speak and do some mentoring and stuff like that.
Yeah, fantastic. So, and then when you were patrolling, you were like truly in like the heaviest or the roughest part of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yeah, and January '99, with my plaque, I have a plaque hanging on the wall. I was shot at. Yeah, my partner and I, we were working plain clothes that night, and it was a cold January night. And long story short, it was a young man out there selling drugs. We got somebody to stop the car that he sold to, and long story short, my partner gets out and he starts chasing the guy. I'm still in the car. I'm trying to cut him off with the car, and they run into an alleyway, and it's pitch black, and so I see a second gentleman in all black, and it's dark out, and I could see the gun, holding the gun in his left hand, and he was sneaking up behind my partner who was in the alley, who didn't know he was there. And I jumped out, and I did the TV thing, halt police. This was my second time getting in the shooting. And he I gave him a chance because I could have shot him. He had his back to me, but he had a gun, and I knew what his intentions were. But I gave him a chance, and he took it. So he started shooting at me instead. So we're back and forth at each other. And so that it ended well. Nobody. I was as bad of a shot. I'm in defense, so I'm like trying to, I had
backpedaling or whatever.
Yeah, and it was funny. Then he ran around the corner. I looked to my left, and there was about 13 guys standing across from me, and I was like, "Oh Lord, I'm glad they didn't start shooting too." Wow. Yeah, that was. Yeah, it's dangerous. My first shooting was at a 14-year-old. He came up behind us he didn't know we were there. He was coming to surprise his friends, and I see this crossbow. It was about this. It was big. Yeah. And I just turned, and I just see this gun. I fired it, one shot at him, and he dove out the way. But 2 years later, he was wanted for homicide. So yeah.
Yeah. Your time talking to kids, speaking to people in prisons, did you feel like you ever a sense that you got to impact people for the positive or maybe affect change?
Definitely. And one thing going in, you're not going to reach everyone. The Apostle Paul says one plants the seed, another waters, but God has to increase. I may have planted seeds, and I've run into guys. Like one guy I used to bump heads with on the street. I ran into him maybe 2 or 3 years ago in his cap and gown. He was walking to graduate from college, and he hugged me, and we exchanged numbers. And they'll thank you when you get on them and stuff. And they finally, somebody waters the seed that you planted, and then next thing you know, they're living a good life. They're married with children. So it makes you feel good, even if you don't physically see the impact, but then you see it later down the road. There are some where I go to schools, and the kids are asking when you coming back or stuff like that. Or there's Officer Ghee, and so it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. There's 3 things I want to touch on before we end. So I want to hear a little bit about your work with the officers that are in your bio, the trauma. You said, I think it was in here, but you're working with other officers who are obviously mentally distressed from the job. Yeah. And
it's the whole gamut. Like being a police officer is so much. I always say this, before an officer can have marital issues, health issues, issues with their children, financial issues. Then they go to work. They have internal strife. You might have a problem with a supervisor or another officer. All of that takes place before they even hit the streets. So there's so much. And now we've lost officers to COVID. We have officers who have remnants of COVID. We have officers who work almost up until their death with cancer. Like cops have real life issues like everybody else. And again, then you have to deal with the carnage here, like in Philadelphia, we're over 310 murders for the year. Like you have to deal with all of this stuff. Last year we had, I went out to a scene where a young man, he had a mental issue. He shot his mother, his stepfather, his 2 siblings, and the youngest, I think, was 6. All of them, he shot them all with shotgun. And to go into, I didn't go into the house. That's not part of I wasn't a part of the crime scene. But now I have to counsel cops who saw it. I have radio dispatchers. I had the counsel who were part of a train derailment where people were killed. So you're dealing with that kind of trauma. And then you start seeing that these officers aren't that much different than the people that I was dealing with on the street. You know, some of them come from some bad situations. Some of them are dealing with drugs and alcohol and gambling and all of these different things. Some of them, like one gentleman I had, he spent a year in Walter Reed Hospital after what is it, a bomb blew up his caravan. All of his friends were killed in the vehicle over in Iraq. And now he has to come and now patrol the streets of Philadelphia. You know, after seeing all that. So there's a lot of trauma that officers go through, marital, divorces. So
slice of life. I'm getting I just am feeling the humanness of a police officer in the moment, you know?
Right.
Thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Were you are you able to affect, you feel like you're being of service to these guys?
Yeah. And the thing about it, I do what they tell you don't do. A lot of cops have my phone number, my personal number. And I just feel like after talking to them and then they'll request to see you again. And I have a very, very good track record with the officer, very and highly recommended, if I may say, by my superior officers. So
yeah, cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for that service too. That's what a gift.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me the Les Brown book. What's it called again?
It's oh my God.
It's funny that you don't remember it. It's like this book I'm coming out in with the Les Brown.
Yes.
Is this a senior moment or what?
I think so. It's Ignite the Hunger in You. Ignite the Hunger in You.
Ignite the Hunger in You. Okay, so you're one of the stories from the Les Brown book, Ignite the Hunger in You, which is being produced and distributed by JB Owens Group or Ignite. Yeah. Okay, so what's your story in there?
Well, again, my story is simply called Uncuffed Potential. And again, it's about helping people to address and break through lifelong limitations that have been keeping them from achieving the dreams and the aspirations, the desires they want for their lives. And I was that person who did not know who I wanted, what I wanted to do, and what I was called to do, or any of those things. And so many people are going day to day. It's like being a square peg stuffed in a round hole.
Yeah.
Or you climb up. Then some people, literally, like a friend of mine who reached the level of received his doctorate degree, who's a high-ranking official in the police department. But he'll tell me, Kurt, I don't know my purpose. And sometimes we can climb the ladder and look around and say, wow, only to look and to say, I climbed the wrong ladder.
I do know. I love that. My analogy is like, wait a minute, I was putting together the wrong pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
I should have been putting this puzzle together, not this one. Right.
I like that. Yes. And then what happens, you're frustrated, and it's like, in life, if I'm trying to get to Utah or Wyoming and I'm looking at the map and I'm leaving Michigan and I'm seeing signs that says welcome to Pennsylvania, I'm going the wrong way. But at no point does anybody realize it, and maybe not even to that extreme, even if it's 100 miles the wrong way. Nobody pitches their tent there and say, well, you know what? I've been going the wrong way all this time. I'm just going to stay right here. But do we do that, or do we turn around and however long it takes, we get to our destiny? And I share this in my book. Back in 2015, I had just lost my brother, just buried him, and my sister, she lives in California. My cousin's out there, and so they paid for me to fly out there. So you need a break. And so March 1st of 2015, I'm leaving my home in Philadelphia, and I had to have a shovel to break the ice off the steps because it was freezing cold in Philly. But here's the story. I was going to San Diego.
Okay.
So I had my starting point and I had my destination, which was San Diego.
Yes.
So I started off in a cold place. It was a cold season. But in my suitcase, I was packed for warm weather.
Mm.
And even though I had a layover in Denver, which is even colder, and the moral of the story, so I show myself in a PowerPoint, I show myself with the ice on my steps that morning. And then that evening, I show myself and my cousin standing at the San Diego Pier. And I think he had on shorts, and I had on jeans and a short sleeve shirt. So the moral of the story is you may start off in a cold place, but your destiny still awaits you.
Mm-hmm.
You might be in prison,
yeah.
but your destiny still awaits you. And this is where I try to show people, don't get caught up in what the media and all the stuff said. Don't get caught up in what was done to you and all of this stuff. Your destiny still awaits you if you want it. Again, the greatest revenge is massive success. You want to get back at something, like become successful.
Love it. Tell me, so in regards to your story in the book, do you have action steps in there, or is it more inspirational, or are you like, hey, you know what? Here's action steps for you to tap into your purpose.
Yeah, I had some action steps, and one perspective. You have to change how you view things.
Yeah,
you can't look at people and circumstances through somebody else's lenses. I talk about in my book a story about a man who I was sitting at a convenience store. I was eating.
When you say hold on, when you say your book, you mean your story in his book or a different book?
A different book.
Okay, cool. We'll address that in a minute, but go on. So we've got finish your story. Okay.
Okay. Oh no, I don't want to get out of line. Is that?
No. That's perfect. Okay. I just want the people listening to know that yeah, it's fine. We're continue.
Okay, thank you. Well, I was sitting and watching the gentleman. Well, I'm eating a sandwich in my car, and I see this older gentleman, disheveled. He comes and he has a tattered cardboard, and he whips out a marker and he starts writing on it. And then he goes to the boulevard and he holds up a sign. And lo and behold, people pull up and they're giving him money, and he's collecting money. And I just thought to myself, I said, that's brilliant. I said, this man took the only resource he had, possibly the only thing he had, and he wrote it down, and he produced money. But somebody on the other side of the road, same set of circumstances, same resources, but they're writing a different story. They're saying, my wife walked out on me. My boss fired me. The government did this, and they're writing a narrative and then this man is eating and living to see another day based on whatever he wrote.
Yeah.
This person is starving to death on a diet of negativity.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, it's the perspective. You can see things from two different perspectives. And it's so the action steps are we'll talk about perspective. We'll talk about passion. What everybody has a passion for something. And when we think of passion is love and all that. Passion can be anger. I was raped as a child. So now if I see somebody else raped, that makes me angry. So now I start a group home, so out of passion, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you can maybe be like, all right, I have some, I love the way you frame that. It's beautiful. Like, don't be afraid to be like, all right, I'm angry about this. That means I'm passionate about it. Maybe I can affect some change here.
Yeah. And you tap into that passion instead of sitting around talking about what they did and who did this. Like, it angers me to see these young brothers killing each other like crazy. So that's my passion to kind of, dispel that. Then the next one would be potential. Potential is not what you lost or what's used up. It's what's still left in the tank. Like, you still have potential. There is potential. And then there's the next will be purpose. Everybody has a purpose. You can't escape it. God did not create, the manufacturer did not create anything, and you don't know the purpose of a thing. You know, I might use a remote control. You come looking for the remote control. Where is it? Well, it's under the table because one of the table legs are short. So I propped it up under there. Okay, you're using it for that purpose, but that's not the original purpose of it. So, yeah. And then the last one is planning, and you can't planning to succeed. Basically, without the first four,
yes,
and you can't succeed. Success starts in the mind. You know, I talk about it in my book with Emmett Smith. You know, before he became this great running back and all of that, it started in Pensacola, Florida, when he was a little boy, mimicking playing in his house or running around in the streets. He saw himself being this great. So it starts in the mind. So I just encourage people to take those action steps towards.
I love this, and this is in your 5 Keys to Your Destiny book. Is what that book's called?
Yes, yep. And that's slated to come out. I'm still working. JB's working with me on that in December.
Okay.
And that the genesis of that was in 2017. I was asked to speak at Temple University, and just to encourage some inmates who were coming back into society. But this particular day was 30 plus people, but none of them were returning inmates. These were just regular people who wanted to know how can I, because the book title is The 5 Keys to Your Destiny, Free Your Mind, Change Your Life. So people want to know, like, how can I change? So it came from that. And I wrote it. I even had it printed out, and it wasn't good. I never sold it because it was typo. So JB is helping me get it together now.
Get it dialed in. JB's gifted too, right?
Yes, very much. Yes.
So awesome, fantastic. So you have a lot going on. This is kind of an exciting time for you in your life, right? You've got the Les Brown book coming out. You're working with JB Owen to get your 5 Keys to Your Destiny, Free Your Mind, Change Your Life book out. Hopefully December. All right, I've got the 5 keys. I want to talk about perspective. Mm-hmm. Give me 3, and I'll let you go. You got to go.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. So in regard to perspective, like what are some tactics? Like it's easy to say change your perspective, but give me some actionable, like, all right, you're 40 years old, you just lost your last job, you feel like, as I say, you're playing with the wrong puzzle, or what did you say? The guy was climbing the wrong ladder, right? What, and they're frustrated and their mind is not in a good spot. Like how, give me something good where someone can change their perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, one is really the belief system. My issue was when I wasn't confident about things, and what it was is because I wasn't certain. Okay. Certainty is important. So perspective first, sometimes you have to wash out all of the things that you were taught. The hardest learning sometimes is unlearning. And you know, we're told things. So I try to counter what people say. So when just dealing with a certain demographic, we were talking about the Black community, because my passion is really to motivate and uplift that community, because it's just hit hard all around our nation. So what I would do is, like people say, well, we can't do this. And first of all, you got to remove the word can't. That's the first thing. And what I'll do is give them examples. Black Wall Street is one. If you're familiar with Black Wall Street.
I'm assuming those are successful Wall Street investors or what have you, venture capitalists, things like that.
Well, what it was back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the early 1900s, it was one man, O.C. Gurley. Basically, he had nothing, but he became a real estate guy, and they took over this one town in Oklahoma, and it was Greenwood, Oklahoma, and the whites referred to it as Little Africa, but they owned hotels, they owned all kind of businesses. I think 9 of 11 millionaires. This is in the turn of the century. And they had all of this stuff, and they were actually doing better than the whites. And so my point is, if they can come out of slavery, out of Reconstruction period
Yeah.
into Jim Crow and be successful, some of them had their own aircrafts.
Wow.
They had their own private airplanes. So I can't give you that as an excuse. So it's not a matter of changing the system, but in some regards, you just have to change your perspective. You have to change yourself, how you see yourself in the situation. Because if you can't see yourself, you'll never get out of the situation if you can't see yourself out of it. And so so that's just one thing. It's watch what you tell yourself, because this stuff is based on what you're telling yourself. Les Brown, he told a story one time when a gentleman was trying to encourage him, and he kept giving them all excuses, but, and the next thing you know, they were disconnected. The phone disconnected. So Les called him back and he says, yeah, we were disconnected. He said, no, we weren't disconnected. He said, I hung up on you. So Les said, what do you mean you hung up on me? He said, when you began to argue for your limitations, I let you keep them. So what happens is, if you argue for your limitations, Henry Ford said, if you say you can't, or if you say you can, you're right. So
I love that. I love that. I love the idea. It's simple as, well, I like the broader perspective, but I love the simply changing from can't to can. If you start bringing awareness to where you're saying you can't, and literally start inserting can.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. And then with this, people, even in the church, so many people, they go to church. Some read the Bible, some don't. They believe, but when it comes down to themselves, they don't. And so I encourage them, like, what God do you serve? If God said this, then if you believe him for this, then you have to believe him for what he said over here as well. So it's really, perspective is really, I can do this diagram. It's a, if you look at it one way, it's a duck. If you look at it another way, it's a rabbit. And people get blown away by it. And I do it on a PowerPoint. And half to say a rabbit, half to say duck. And it's how you see it.
So good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to skip forward a few steps. So let's say someone's able to change their perspective. They're able to tap into their passion, whether it's like, ooh, I love this, or ooh, I want to affect change because I'm angry about it. Which I like that idea too. If you're angry about it, you can actually turn it into a positive, which is the gift. What a gift, right? Some potential. You see potential. Let's talk about purpose. I think it can really be hard to sort of suss out purpose. Tell me about that.
Yeah, purpose again is the original intent of a thing. There is nothing that has been created that doesn't have a purpose. And if God talks about, Jesus talks about in the Bible that like the birds of the air, you never see birds walking around like, yo, man,
But tell me, I want to know. So it's easy to say, right? A lot of the stuff is easy to say. So experience is going to help us find our purpose. Or so what do you like? I mean, perhaps meditate, perhaps write, okay. What, like what are some things to do where people could go, all right, like an actionable step to help tap into that purpose. Yeah.
Okay. I was just sharing this with my niece the other day. What is the thing that you do the best with the least amount of effort? What is the thing that when you're around it, it makes you feel like, man, I was born to do this. There are things that make you feel uncomfortable. There are things being around people that make you feel uncomfortable. But what is it that you do that even being around others won't even make you uncomfortable? because this is what you do naturally. I shared this one time. I'm a giver. I'm always doing for people. And it was at a time when I was just like, you know what, I ain't doing for nobody else. People, when I need something, they don't think about me. And it was a teenage girl in a dollar store. She was trying to get something off the shelf that was high up. And it's like I almost broke my neck to go to help her. I was like, can I get that for you? And oh, thank you. And it showed me right there. That's where your purpose lies. I'm an influencer. I'm a helper. So that's where that thing leaps out of you where it's like, man, I would do this if I wasn't getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, that's good. So you are speaking at Tulane, 30 people. I think that's what you said. 30 people.
Yeah. Temple University.
Temple University.
Yeah.
Temple University. And that's when you're introduced to JB, or what? How do you end up JB, Les Brown? Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. That happened in 2007. That's when the book came about, The 5 Keys to Your Destiny. When I did those 5 keys in a 45-minute workshop. Okay. And so fast forward to 2020. I met a coach, a gentleman, and I was doing with him on Zoom every day, coaching. He was pouring into me, and that's where I met JB.
Yes.
JB was a part of that class as well. So when I found out what she was doing in terms of books, I reached out to her and said, hey, I have a book. I can use some help. Yeah. And as through our progression with that book, she had already connected with Les Brown to do this compilation, and she thought I would be a good fit. So that's how I got into that.
Fantastic. So did you get to meet and hang out and kick it with Les Brown?
Not yet. We were all on a Zoom last Friday, and for the next few weeks, we're all going to be together via Zoom. So I will be getting to talk to him more, and then he's going to do some one-on-ones with each of us. So yeah,
excited for that.
Yeah, and ironically, I met him years ago at my former church back in the 2000s. He had came and spoke there, and I was in an intimate circle with him then. So
nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You know what? I think we've covered most ground. What we miss? What are you like, man, I wish we'd have talked about this, or I wished I'd have said this. Anything come to your mind?
We did pretty much cover everything, but the Uncuffed Potential is what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, it's uncuffed, just being a police officer. And I should have sent you an email of the logo. It's really cool. It's a handcuff, and it's one cuff is open. Yeah. It really hit me. I used to go to meetings and people would always. I made a business card. It was always something to do with purpose. I forget what it was, and I gave them the business card. But they were like, "Well, what about policing?" They always want to hear about. Everybody's intrigued about the policing part of me. Yes. So I said, that's when I said, I had to come up with something that's more police related. And so that's what came to me, Uncuffed Potential, because my thing is, my mantra is, I think, I don't know if I put it in there, but it's not the hand of a man that causes him to steal, but it's the mind that controls his hand. Yes. Makes him a thief. And that came to me years ago. And to my former commissioner used to always say, we cannot arrest ourselves out of these problems. Yes. Arresting people is a necessary evil, but it's not the overall solution. So my theory was, instead of putting the same guy back and forth into prison, what if I'm able to introduce something to him that can change his way of thinking about himself and how he sees himself, or she sees herself? And now we can get a person who can change himself or herself can be changed. Then the dynamic of their family changes, and then the community changes. Like something, we're not doing something right if year after year, we had 499 murders in Philadelphia last year. we're over 300 now, and it's just July. Like something is, when I came on in 93, from 93 to 98, we were over 400 murders every year. So we're not doing something right. So I would rather tap into that person that God created them to be. He did not create them to be a murderer, a drug dealer, any of those things. Let's find out who you are supposed to be.
That's amazing. So you and your wife are doing this, right? Your wife's also a police officer.
Yes.
Uncuffed Potential. Where do we find Uncuffed Potential? For people that are like, this sounds amazing, because it is amazing. Where are they going to find Uncuffed Potential?
Well, we're just putting everything together, but I have a phone number and an email address. We don't have a website up yet.
Do you? Go.
Oh no! If either of those two, I can give to you.
Absolutely, fire.
Yeah, I can be reached at 267-307-6503. And my email is uncuffed potential, UNCUFFED, and the word potential @gmail.com.
Fantastic. And do you have a domain or a website being built, or have you picked a domain so let's assume that we publish this episode and somebody stumbles across it 2 years from now, and so they can go to where to see what you've created.
Okay. My wife had started something. It would be www.uncuffedpotential.
Uncuffedpotential.com.
Yes, there we go.
Love it. So fantastic. This sounds amazing. My guess is 2 years from now that you'll have a model that, is this your vision? You have a model that in 2 years people can apply it.
Oh yeah.
In their communities. Is that what's the vision? Tell me the grand vision.
Yeah. The vision is just that where I'm at, and I just moved outside of Philadelphia. So I see our vision in all of the counties on this side anyway, where I'm at now. The school districts, bringing the program in as a model to help the youth. I've spoken at Temple and Villanova. So some of the supposed to get into this other university, some of the universities, because not only is this for young high schoolers and middle school, even some elementary level, it's for all people, because there are so many people that are walking around this just living and not knowing their purpose. I was one of them. And and you hide. So it's really for it's for many people. And I know people say, well, you gotta limit it. You can't be everything to everybody. But I think it can. Even those who are coming out of the prison, we want them to discover their purpose so they don't go back to the same things. Yeah. So
I like it. I mean, I think I like the idea of niche your audience, which is perhaps for people coming out of prison, and then the fringes will follow. And how many of us, Curtis, are in the prison of our mind?
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
And if I could say this real quick, that's how the book starts off. It basically, when I did this, it was funny when I did the presentation. I said, I've never been arrested before. And the guy in the front row was like, good for you. One of those things. I said, as a matter of fact, I ain't never been handcuffed before. I never spent a day in my life behind bars. But I said, my body, I'm free to go anywhere I want to go. But my mind was locked up in a maximum security prison, often visited by my dreams, aspirations, and just opportunities that I squandered. All of those things would visit me in that jail cell. And I shared the jail cell with my fears, doubts, insecurities. Like, this is what in here. And I looked the part. People think Kurt's good, Kurt's good. But I'm just as far away from my purpose as possible. Yeah. And that's how it starts off. So, yeah, I think this will touch a lot of people.
Yeah, Curtis. You know what? Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, again, www.uncuffedpotential.com. and your phone number. I'll put all these links in the show notes. 267-307-6503. You clearly have a powerful message to help people. You've got some books coming out, and the service that you've already provided to the world. God bless you, Curtis. Thank you,
man. Thank you. I'm glad we hooked up. I knew you were going to be fun. I knew this was going to be a good time. So
yeah, good, good, Curtis. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said okay, my friend.
yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna hit stop, and we'll say goodbye as soon offline. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you for spending time with me today. As someone who is committed to growth and service to this world, I so appreciate your willingness to come with me, go within, and serve our world through change. If you found value in this podcast and you know someone who can use this message, share this episode with them. Share it so our mission can be achieved one episode at a time. And of course, subscribe so you can hear more. And lastly, for more resources on what has helped me on my journey and can help you on yours, go to belove.media/resources. That's BELOVE.media/resources. Thank you again for listening.